host and our very own Carolyn Gauthier. Oh, so we did it, everyone. Week 6. Week 6. Yeah, go on. Go right past me. It's all good. We are in the final week of our book study. And there are still some books available in the bookstore if anybody is interested in diving in. Can you feel the accumulation of what we have all been working with? That there's a momentum that we have as a community stepped into about understanding something about ourselves and about the world, and most importantly, I think, about each other. It's so beautiful, this idea of showering the people we love with love, but we can also shower everybody, even if we don't love them with love, yes? And what I love about our teaching so much is that it really provides a very practical way to be able to live into something like that, right? So it's not just an idea anymore, I'm going to shower the people I know with love, but that it's actually something that we can concretely step into and engage with ourselves and with each other in a completely different way. The idea of our evolving consciousness, the idea that where we are right now is amazing. Can everybody say that? Where I am right now, is amazing. And there is so much more to go. And that's the piece, right? We have to be able to hold that where we are right now is amazing. We have grown, we have become something, we understand things that we didn't understand before. And there is that which is calling us forth to know even more. And what we tend to do is we beat ourselves up for what we didn't know back then. Like, I discover something now, and then I want to beat myself up for not having recognized it much earlier. Can we let that go? Can we just let it go? Because does it help us? It doesn't. It actually holds us back. It makes us afraid of making more mistakes. It makes us afraid to be curious. It makes us afraid to explore. Instead of our call to be greater being something that is joyous and loving and filled with curiosity and excitement, we become filled with trepidation and anxiety. And that's only because we are not trusting that where we are right now is amazing. It's great that wherever you are is amazing. And there is so much more. There is so much more. Last week, I asked the question, where in your life are you simply rearranging the furniture? Right? The difference between change and transformation. Change, where we keep playing with the same pieces, and we're just rearranging them in our life, and we think, oh, that's all, that feels fresh and new. But is it really fresh and new? Or is it comfortable because you have all the pieces and you kind of know what they are? And the invitation that this affirmative prayer process is continually inviting us into is transformation, is the possibility to understand, spiritually understand something about yourself and the world in a completely different way. And if you're getting anxious about that, because change, transformation makes us anxious, what I want to offer to you is that on the other side of that new understanding is only more joy. It's only more love. It's only more grace. It's only more healing. It's never less. That's what Unity believes, that we are in an additive and inclusive universe we don't reduce. We are always in this process of expansion. So as you are meeting your own fear of what we don't know, just know this: it's going to be more of who you truly are. Not less, but more. Isn't that kind of exciting? That's exciting to me. So we have been talking about affirmative prayer as a process where we realign with our true nature and consciously live from our divinity. And the heart of affirmative prayer: God is, I am, therefore I can. Last time, everybody, let's all say that together. All right, and you'll notice I have been saying affirmative prayer changes you, and I've changed that. Affirmative prayer transforms you. That's what affirmative prayer is doing. It's not just rearranging the furniture, right? It's an actual new understanding. So the flow is first we got to be open to it. If we're not open to something new, then guess what? Nothing new is going to come into our world. So we open to a new understanding. We recognize God is oneness, wholeness, beauty, grace. We figure out what out of all of that infinite allness that is ultimately unknowable, that is ultimately unnameable. Is everybody with me on this? That we are going to, I can't be the all of God. I can't. I exist in time and space. I can't be the all of everything that is formless. Does that make sense? But what I can integrate and live as is one idea that is available to me from the infinite allness. That might be joy, it might be beauty, it might be strength, it might be love. And as I realize that it is mine, that I am it, that means that I am capable of something that perhaps I didn't know I was capable of. And that's the whole point of the process. And then what we appreciate, what we stand in gratitude for, is this process of transformation and growth. Is this way that we get to show up in a new way again and again and again and again. And the spiral is the image, because we often start from this place that's so tight and small. Can anybody relate to that? Our humanness makes us get small. What was that Steve Martin thing? Getting smaller? What was that? I'm thinking about something from a very old SNL skit. Anyway, we don't want to play small. What we want to do is stand in as much as we can. Is that enough? Is as much wholeness as you can own, is that enough? The answer is yes. Everybody look at me and go, yes. Again, we're not holding ourselves to some impossible standard. Whatever that thing is that you think is like the Om Shanti, uber spiritual, that's who I'm supposed to be, could you just give it a rest? Just give yourself a rest. Give the rest of us a rest, right? Just give it a rest. There is no think about the difference between Jesus and how he inhabited the Christ consciousness and Buddha. Both living into the isness and the I am that they are, and yet the way that expressed through them, was it the same? No. Isn't that amazing? You are not going to look the same as anybody else does as you stand in your spiritual authority. It's going to be unique to you. And that can be a little scary, because like, oh boy. But if we're all standing in our most authentic self, if we're all standing in our unique and amazing divinity, then we're actually not alone. We're all doing that together. This is really important. A lot of malpractice happens in New Thought around this. So we do not pretend that something isn't active in our life, right? Because that is not how you actually heal. It is by meeting our worries and our doubts and our fears and our anxiety and I'm not enough with truth. That is where we can actually heal. So again, some of this I'm just repeating, but I feel like we have to repeat it because we get so caught up. We are 100% human, and we are 100% divine. Simultaneously. I know, it doesn't add up, does it? But that is the divine paradox, that we are both and. So we can hold all of our humanness. We can be fully human. And we get to bring the truth of who we are to meet, to embrace, to heal that humanness. So I was teaching the 12 powers at Unity of Sacramento, and I used the heart of affirmative prayer as part of what I wanted their homework to be. God is, I am, therefore I can. And I asked them to use the 12 powers, right? How would they live into the 12 powers? And this student sent me their homework, and I swear I cried when I read it. Because you know when someone gets it? So her condition was feeling stuck in a rut at work and wanting to take on new project opportunities to enhance her growth. That was her condition. And let me be really clear, she was a wreck about this. She was despondent, she had given up, she had a sense of hopelessness. She was really in a hard place around this particular condition. So the two powers that she decided what would be useful to her right now were zeal and imagination. So she said, God is imagination, God is zeal, I am imagination, I am zeal, and therefore I can, and look what she can do, conceive a strong vision of the exciting and impactful projects that I will work on to positively serve communities. Envision how to connect with senior leaders and project managers to improve my understanding of upcoming project opportunities. Embody the mindset of fulfilling project work that keeps me excited about the beneficial impact I'm making on communities. Audaciously ask coworkers about potential project opportunities that are a good fit for me. Develop a devotion to exploring project opportunities that are exciting and promote my growth. Right? Can you feel how empowered she is? Can you feel how she now has a way of being in the world that is accessing her spiritual capacities in a very concrete way? And if she's having a bad day, guess what? She can print this out, stick it on her refrigerator. She can have it on her desk. Is this not an amazing thing to remind yourself of every morning before you go to work? That this is how you are showing up in the world? This is what's available to us, not the, right? She could have said, I'm imagination, so, I can envision lots of really good things happening to me. She is clear. I'm going to envision how to connect with people, right? I'm going to have a vision that is about exciting and impactful projects that I want to do that serve the community. Can you feel how she has activated these powers in her very being? This is what I'm inviting you into. This is the type. Can you imagine? She's going to show up at work a different person. She's not going to be the same person when she shows up at work. Now, is she going to be able to anchor that and hold that 100% and not have any kind of contraction? Probably not, right? And that's okay. That's our humanness. Again, we don't make our humanness the bad guy. We acknowledge it, we respect it, we honor it, and we take care of it, right? We hold it in a way so our humanness can be human. That's why we're in, for me, that's the only reason I've ever come up with as to why we're actually here in time and space is because there's something here to actually experience, right? To actually be a part of. So we don't cut ourselves off from that, but it doesn't become the only thing. It doesn't become the only prism that we are seeing through. So, the purpose of affirmative prayer is to align with whatever divine principle will meet, heal, and transform a false sense of separation. We focus the purpose of the prayer on what we want to realize and experience. So Shay spoke to that so beautifully, very extemporaneously. But that reading was about how when we are in a state of worry, we are actually focused on what we don't want. And we are using our power to envision, but we're using it in a way to envision what we don't want. And what we're being invited into is to access the spiritual truth of who we are and focus and envision what that brings to ourself and, really, most importantly, to the world. Because we're not operating in a vacuum. There's only one power. There's only one presence. Do you think that if that woman shows up at work with this kind of mindset, that her senior managers and her project they're not going to in some way be impacted by what she is now bringing into the engagement, the relationship? This is how we create change. But it has to, one of the places that it's got to start is right here. If I'm not willing to show up any differently, then why would anybody else be willing to show up any differently? Bayard Rustin, who I've talked to a lot about Bayard Rustin, and if you haven't seen the Netflix, I think it's on Netflix, the biopic about him, it's phenomenal. It really is. It's phenomenal. And it really gives you a sense of just how important, the gay perspective was in the Black civil rights movement. But he has this fabulous quote that I just, when I heard it, I was like, yes. This is what we're talking about with what you're being invited into with affirmative prayer. Inspiration, untethered from action, loses all value. You can be as inspired as you want at the end of a prayer, but if it is not somehow activated, it loses its value. And when we become comfortable activating that within ourselves and we show up in the world with it, that truly is how we become, warriors of social justice that are anchored in the spiritual ideals. I kept thinking about Martin Luther King and when he would speak and why we listened to him. And it was because he was speaking from his spiritual authority. Martin Luther King was speaking from his spiritual authority. I have a dream. My power of imagination is creating something right now. And that power is available to each of us. And I know that some of us go, whoa, I don't know how comfortable I am being that powerful. You actually are that powerful already, whether you want to embrace it or not. So where are you going to direct that power? How are you going to use that power? Are you going to use that power to undermine your ability to actually stand in your wholeness? Because I've done it, right? I've done it with real focus, used my power to actually undermine my capacity to heal. Or are you going to bring consciousness to it? Now, we can't do it alone, right? We can't do it alone. We don't live in a vacuum. Oneness is our prime principle, which tells us that we're never alone, quote unquote. So in unity, we have a very special way of holding how we pray with others. We do not pray for people. We do not pray for anyone. We pray with people. Can you feel the distinction in this? Because when you're praying with someone, I do not have access to anything that you don't already have access to. That's the truth of it. I'm not here to tell you how to be a spiritual being. I'm here to be with you on this spiritual journey that we are on together. Because let me be, if you haven't figured it out already, I have. I don't have it all figured out. So we are on a journey together. So when we're praying, we are praying with someone. Because where is prayer happening? In our consciousness. So if we're praying for someone, is the prayer happening in their consciousness? It's not. And it's also part of that old idea that there is someone or something who can intercede on your behalf with God. That some priest or some, rabbi or some holy man has figured out something that you will never get. So let me pray for you, you poor thing, you. Unity doesn't hold with that. We hold that you have everything you need, even if you don't know it in the moment. And that we are here together to remind each other of that when we start circling the drain. Because is everybody in here going to circle the drain? Yes. Let's not pretend. Let's not pretend. So our focus when we're praying with others is to move through the prayer flow and realize truth. So in our own personal prayer life, it's the truth of our own divinity, right? That's what we're doing in our own personal prayer life. But when we're praying with others, what we're realizing is the truth of their divinity. Yes? Make sense? It is by our spiritual authority to name and claim our own divine nature that we can also name and claim their divine nature. Now, that's a big one. And this is really central to how Unity prays with other people. It is by the clarity of my own spiritual authority to understand the divinity that I am and how it is all oneness that enables me to pray with you and know that you are divine, because you can't be separate from that oneness. So if I'm divine, you're not an exception. There are no exceptions, remember? No exceptions. So this is why having a personal prayer life is so important, because a personal prayer life helps us kind of clear the pipes of ourselves and our own resistance to owning our amazingness, and so that we can actually share it more brightly, more freely, more unself-consciously with others. So I wanted to really hit this because for me, this was hugely important. Unity's cosmology and our teachings, they arose through the scientific method. Remember, I've talked about this. Science and spirituality are colliding in the 1800s. People are trying to make sense of how spirituality, where God supposedly created the earth in 6 days, but we're digging up dinosaur bones that show that the earth is much older than that. So how do we reconcile this? And that is where New Thought arose, as a way to reconcile something that didn't feel as if it could be reconciled. And the way that all of our New Thought founders brought to the Bible and to our understanding of God was this idea of the scientific method, which was, number one, question. Question. Is the way I've been taught, is there another way? Just to even open up the question. And then doing research. Charles Fillmore studied the Hindu Vedic system, right? He studied other faith traditions. Myrtle Fillmore went out and explored other ways that healing might be possible for her when she was diagnosed with tuberculosis. So they were doing research. And then out of that, there is the invitation for a hypothesis. Now, what would Unity's biggest hypothesis be? Oneness. That's our biggest hypothesis, right? The prime principle. That's our biggest hypothesis. And then you experiment. Does it work? Does it make sense? There are thousands of years of mystical traditions in all the faith traditions that talk about oneness, that talk about the fact that we're not separate, that talk about the fact that we are actually here to be avatars of light and love, right? So unity's not unique in that. And then there's the analysis. You sit back and you look at your life and you go, that's working. I like that. That brought me more joy. We reach a conclusion. I think this is working for me, right? And then we communicate that. So how we can communicate our own journey through the scientific process. So Ernest Holmes called it the science of mind for a reason. He used to always say, go out and experiment. Take these principles, try them out, see what happens. And the communication that I believe, for me, is an end result, is when we pray with other people. That's how we communicate everything that we have processed and synthesized, is when we step into the prayer field with others. So everything in unity is actually very logical and rational, which I liked, right? I always struggled with traditions that were like, don't question, don't ask, don't worry about the fact that doesn't actually make any sense. Just have faith. My rational, logical mind just would spin. All of unity's fundamental principles are based on if-then, right? If-then. So if oneness, then the three omnis. And if the three omnis, then goodness. And if goodness, then oneness is available. And if oneness is available, then I can recognize oneness. And if I can recognize oneness, then I can realize oneness. Now, you could sit there and say, well, what if that prime principle isn't true? You could say that, and I have always said you have a choice, always have a choice in unity, about what that fundamental understanding of the world is going to be. Is it a friendly or an unfriendly universe? You get to decide that. I have good friends that believe that it is an unfriendly universe. It doesn't make them bad people at all. That is something that serves them. It works for them. For me, when I was living in an unfriendly universe, my world was unfriendly. Didn't work for me. So for me, I'm willing, and then I've experimented. Again, experiment. I've experimented with all of this. And what I have discovered is that all of these if-thens actually work. They actually play out. I actually do feel more whole. I do feel a sense of centeredness. I do have moments where I am able to realize oneness. And I'm able to carry that with me into the world when the world is a really, really challenging place. So this is the if-then, right? If I am aware of my divine nature, then I can be aware of yours. Can you see how it's logical? It flows. There's no place in there that I have found, and you are invited to dive in and try and discover it, where it sort of breaks apart, right? I haven't found it, and believe me, I looked. I was really looking for all the ways that this wasn't true. So when we pray from our own understanding, we free the person we are praying with from thinking they have to feel or believe what we believe. As we speak from the I, we allow them to have their own interior experience of transformation, one that is not dictated or decided by us. We allow them autonomy and do not presume to co-opt their consciousness. Sometimes with the best of intentions, when we step into the prayer field with people, we want to fix it. We want to fix it. We want to show them how they could fix it. That is not what unity is actually grounded in. Unity is grounded in the understanding of each of our divine nature. And in the prayer field, I remind you of your divine nature. And the clearer I am about that, the more healing it is. I have shared that the first time I ever experienced affirmative prayer, and this person was just telling me what she knew about me. And all I kept thinking was, who is she talking about? Because I don't know that person. But she never said that I had to believe it. Yeah? She just kept telling me what she believed about me over and over and over again. And finally, at one point in the prayer, I went, wow, she's so sure. She's so sure. And every time she would say my name, it was like this lightning bolt of electricity was going through my body. I don't know about you, but the kind of troublemaker I was as a kid, my name is definitely associated with being a bad girl. It's not associated with my highest and best. You know, people called my name when I did something wrong. People don't usually call your name when they're about to tell you that you're the most amazing thing on the planet. And so to have my name connected with what she was seeing about the truth of who I was enabled me to step out of my humanness for a moment and see, does that Deanne exist? She's really sure she exists. And at one point, one of those lightning bolts of truth just sort of lit something up inside of me. And it stayed lit. And it hadn't been lit for a really long time. That was the gift that she gave me, was seeing the truth of who I was and never once telling me that I had to agree with her. She just told me how amazing I was. And there is that which we are in the heart of our heart that ignites when it meets truth. And that's what happened for me. That's the gift that we can give. That is the power of our consciousness, to be able to share our oneness with others. So the affirmative prayer flow, and I'm just going to hit this really quick, but it doesn't really change. We're just inviting the other person in. So it's I open to a new understanding, and you invite them to open as well. You don't tell them they are open. You invite them to open. You recognize God is, you recognize something that you think will be useful, you recognize it as you, and because when we stand in our own spiritual authority, we can see the truth of someone else, you recognize it as them. And therefore, they can, they have, they know. And you get to appreciate the shift in consciousness that's available to them. Can you feel that? So it doesn't matter what pronouns you use. It really doesn't. The format doesn't really change. I open to a new understanding, and I invite you to join me in this place of possibility. God is love, oneness, wholeness. I know I am that, and so are you. Therefore, I know that you can, because they came for prayer, which means they don't know that they can do anything. I know what they're capable of, and I get to share that with them. Yeah? Another pronoun, we can use people's names, and again, play around with it. Explore. There's no right or wrong here. Right? In CSL, they're much clearer about third person and first person names. In Unity, we tend to use you. There is no right or wrong, right? God is, I am, Marius is. Therefore, Marius can, Marius has, Marius knows. So here's our list, which starts off with the I am, right? If I am wisdom, God is wisdom, I am wisdom, I can choose wisely and well, I can discern clearly. So that would become God is wisdom, I am wisdom, and because I am wisdom, I know Eva is wisdom, and Eva knows that she can choose wisely and well, right? That is available to her. God is, I am, you are wisdom. Again, it doesn't matter. Can you see how the pronouns don't actually impact what the flow is? It's really whatever is most comfortable for you. What I would suggest is do not get hung up on the pronouns. People get very hung up on the pronouns. Do not get hung up on the pronouns. It's not worth it, right? If you're comfortable praying in the you, pray in the you. It's not a big deal. If you're more comfortable, I prefer third person because it helps me speak from my spiritual identity rather than my humanness. My humanness goes out to lunch with you and says you, right? It helps me stay centered in my spiritual capacity, but that's what works for me. You get to experiment, right? Experiment, play around with it, see what feels as if you feel the most empowered. That's it, that's the answer. It is affirming and realizing within our own consciousness that we already have access to everything and anything that they need. We are sharing our consciousness of oneness. We oftentimes talk about just being so bright a light and so consistently a bright light that the light that they are ignites, right? Not because I did it, but because there was a realization that they had of the truth of who they actually are. Yes? Everyone with me here? This is really radically different than what most prayer practices are. Most prayer practices tell people they're prescriptive, they tell people what they should be doing, right? That is not what we're doing. We are reminding people of their spiritual capacity and what is available to them. James Baldwin says, "The longer I live, the more deeply I learn that love, whether you call it friendship or family or romance, is the work of mirroring and magnifying each other's light. Gentle work, steadfast work, life-saving work. In those moments when life and shame and sorrow occlude our own light from our view, but there is a still, clear-eyed, loving person to beam it back. In our best moments, we are that person for another." That is the heart of how we show up for each other. To be the one who is just reflecting back the truth of who they are, even if they can't see it in that moment. So let's take this into our time of meditation. I'm actually going to invite you to call in someone that you're worried about. All right? Someone that has got you worried in some way, shape, or form. I'm going to invite you to just bring them into your awareness. And it could be you. If you're worried about you, bring yourself into your own awareness. It's all good. And as we hold this person and whatever the worry is and whatever the conditions are and whatever the circumstances are, just let out a big exhale. And open yourself to the truth of who they actually are. Open yourself to the divinity that they are, that is infinite potential and infinite possibility. And just allow yourself to be open and willing to see the truth. Just recognizing what would be useful. What would be useful for yourself, maybe, in your own worry? What would be useful for them, perhaps, in whatever their life situation is? One thing, one divine idea. Strength, love, light, joy, release, spiritual understanding, zeal, love, compassion, abundance. And know that that is your life. You are that. And as you know that you are that, can you see that they are that too? They are infinite love. They are infinite light. They are joy. They are power. And then just allow yourself to sit with, if that is the truth of who they are, what is it that you know that they are capable of? Capable of knowing, or capable of discovering, or capable of stepping into. And just see them being that. And then step into that place of gratitude and appreciation that you were able to know their wholeness. That they are so much more than your worry and concern. And just see your worry and concern falling away. And let's just rest in the silence for a moment in that space of your divinity and their divinity. Just being there. How good it is to take this time to recenter ourselves and those who we love, those who we know, those who maybe we don't know personally, but we're bringing into this prayer field. Knowing that as we anchor and are aware of our own truth, that we can see and anchor that truth, creating space and opportunity. Space and opportunity for ourselves and others. In gratitude for this, truly beyond words, I say, and so it is. Amen. Ashe.